Welcome to the 8th grade Math Homework Helper Series. Tonight's homework is SP-3, Trend Lines. We'll start by doing a little review. The four types of scatterplot associations. You can have a positive association, where the data is going to be trending in an upward direction from left to right. You can have a negative association, where the data is moving in a downward direction from left to right. You can have no association, where the data is scattered all over the scatterplot, and there's no way to make any sense of it. And you can have a nonlinear association, which is going to result in one of the arcing type patterns. And the newest thing that you've learned is a trend line. A trend line is a line that most closely represents the relationship between two variables in a scatterplot. It can also be called a line of regression or a line of best fit. And the way that you make a trend line is to construct a trend line. You should use a straight edge to draw a line that passes through the points so that there are an equal number of points on either side of the line, or as close to that as you can get. The line may or may not pass through any of the points. Most of the time, the line will be a positive or negative and represent the association between the two variables. So as you draw that line, you're not going to be drawing a nonlinear association. Your trend lines, are going to be representing either a positive association where they are moving in that upward direction, or a negative association where they're moving in that downward direction. And if these two associations don't exist, then you wouldn't be drawing any trend line. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the questions. We're going to start by taking a look at question 1E. And it says, for each scatterplot, name the type of association for the data and sketch a trend line for any linear associations. So as I look at the data on this graph, I notice that it's moving from left to right in a generally upward direction. And so if I were to put a trend line on there, my trend line might look something like that. And it does hit a couple of the points, not that it had to, but I felt that was probably the most central spot for that line. And you'll notice in this case that it works out nicely that I have 4 points on this side of my trend line and 4 points on this side of my trend line. So that's a goal. It's not always going to work out that way. Sometimes you may have 6 points over here and only 3 or 4 points on the other side. But in this case, it worked out nicely. So your trend line should be something like that. And again, if you don't work out exactly 4 and 4, that's okay. Now, based on the way this trend line's moving, I would classify this as a positive association. Now I want to take care of C and F together. Starting with C, if you notice the points are kind of all over the place. I could put a line that cuts these in half, right straight up and down. But while that would divide them so that I have an even amount on both sides, it doesn't faithfully represent the way the data is moving because the data is all over the place. So remember, if it's a no association, there are no lines to be drawn. And if you look at this one is probably the most obvious one to pick out. It's a nonlinear. And again, with nonlinear, you would not make any kind of a line. All right, now we're going to move to question number 3. Number 3 has a lot of pieces to it. It says the scatter plot below shows the high temperature in Fahrenheit and elevation for 16 towns within a degree of latitude on the same day. Draw a line of best fit for this data. Describe the line of best fit. Is there an outlier or outliers in the data, and if so, circle them. And if the elevation is at 400 feet, what high temperature could one expect? So let's do this step by step. Step number 1, we need to draw a line of best fit, which is also known as a trend line. So I'm noticing as I move from left to right that the data seems to be moving in a downward direction. So my trend line is going to look something like that. Step 1 complete. Step number 2, describe the line of best fit. Well, I notice that it looks to be a negative association, and so I can say the trend line is a negative association, and that completes step number 2. Do we have any outliers? Well, these guys, while not on the line, are pretty close to it, and they're moving in that direction. This one over here seems to be hanging out a little bit more and doesn't really fall in with the rest of the pattern, so it's a possible outlier. And the same thing with this one over here. These are possible outliers. And I circled them, so I've completed that. Now, the last part, at 400 feet, what high temp could I expect? Well, if I look at 400 feet on my y-axis and I slide across, where my trend line intersects the 400 feet is the temperature that I could expect. And my trend line crosses 400 near 68, but a tiny bit past it. So as I look at the scale down below, it's going from 68 to 70, so 69 was skipped. Up the middle of this set right here would be 69. And so it's not quite at the middle, but it's also not quite at 68. So it's somewhere in between 68 and 69. So I'm going to say that I could expect a high temperature of about 68.5 degrees Fahrenheit at an elevation of 400 feet. Please use the work that was done for you tonight to solve the rest of the problems that are on your homework. And remember, the key to success in math is not only working hard, but working smart.